What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and by the time you guys see this video, it's going to be Thursday morning. Last night I dropped my 6 must-buy trade targets. Today we're going to be talking through my 5 must-sell players for Week 7. I was going to say trade targets, but I don't know. These are just players that I would be looking to sell heading into Week 7. So we have a lot of players to get into. I believe we have 5 sell candidates here. So let's not waste any time. If you enjoy, make sure to get down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
VVS stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Now, for these videos, sometimes I just have, hey, these are 5 guys I'd be looking to sell, but sometimes I have themes, and the themes of this video, or the theme of this video, is running back is very scarce, man. We have so many bye weeks, where if I look, just like Week 7 bye weeks, you have the Jets, so Breece Hall is out. You have Carolina, so like Chuba Hubbard, and you have Miles Sanders out. You also have the Texans, so Dameon Pierce, Derrick Henry's out with the Titans. You have the Cowboys, Tony Pollard is out, Joe Mixon is out. On top of that, David Montgomery's hurt. McCaffrey might be missing this week. I mean, it is just brutal right now. So if you can find somebody who's down bad, maybe they are 2-4, they need a win, but they have Mixon and Derrick Henry on bye week, and they need the running back points. I think right now, so look around your league, go to kind of, if you're on ESPN or Sleeper, you go to like matchups, you can kind of scroll through the matchups a little bit and see, who's this guy rolling out there at running back? Take a little peek ski. If he's rolling out there something crazy, something wild, rolling out Emery DeMarcado again or something like that and just absolutely hopeless, maybe you tap him on the shoulder and you say, hey man, I got a guy for you. What do you think about Jerome Ford? So Jerome Ford's our first one. I don't know. I don't know what that whole thing was about. All right, just bear with me here for a second. Jerome Ford, I think, is a huge sell. We talked about it in the top 10 lessons learned. If he's somebody who's not in your lineup right now, he's sitting on your bench or he's like in the mix, I would be looking to sell him. Okay, he is slowly but surely losing his role to Kareem Hunt here, where this past week in Week 6, they come out of the bye week, and Jerome Ford, since the Nick Chubb injury, plays his lowest snap count, 51%. His rush attempt share actually went up, but the routes went down. We need routes. We need targets. This isn't going to be a team who's just going to feed Jerome Ford. They're starting to give more and more rush attempts to Kareem Hunt as well. 17% rush attempts, 23%, and 36%. Maybe that climbs up to 40% this week, 45%. On top of that, Kareem Hunt is taking away all of the receiving work, where he's running 32% of the routes. He's digging into more of that. Or not all of the receiving work, but he's digging into more and more of that. He's becoming a little bit annoying here, where he is out there running routes, catching passes, taking rush attempts. He scored 16 PPR points this past week. We also have the utilization report, which is what that whole sort of breakdown was. You can see, again, Kareem Hunt is probably going to grow in terms of his route or in terms of his role here, but the utilization report, which we just looked at, that was like kind of the game logs there showing everything. If you look at this past week, they actually like the utilization of Kareem Hunt more than Jerome Ford, just in terms of targets, target per out run, short yardage snaps, 2-minute drill snaps, all of that, long down and distance stuff, PPR points. It takes into account everything and kind of puts into like who has the best role right now, and it's Kareem Hunt. Now, I think it's probably like a coin flip. It's a coin flip, but Kareem Hunt, again, I think the role is going to grow. He already has rapport with Stefanski. And I think it's just going to be a tough situation to navigate. So if you can kind of sell Jerome Ford here, I think I would. You can get some pretty sweet things for Jerome Ford. If we look at Fantasy Calc here, which is what we've been looking at with these trade target videos, where Fantasy Calc is a website. It aggregates a ton of trades here. It's just fantasycalc.com. About the site, it just scrapes. We're constantly scraping new trades from multiple fantasy sites. Now, again, these aren't going to be perfect, okay? These aren't going to be perfect. Some of these trades are going to look at and be like, Ron, that is outrageous. But it gives you a baseline of kind of what you can expect when you're looking to trade these players. When we look at Jerome Ford here, if you can do Jerome Ford straight up for Aaron Jones, I would. But maybe Jerome Ford in a piece, right? Jerome Ford in a little piece on top for Aaron Jones. Jerome Ford for Jordan Addison. I don't mind that one either. Jerome Ford, you can also, Jerome Ford for CeeDee Lamb's not happening. But if you can do Jerome Ford for Devontae Smith, people are kind of out on Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is also hurt. Maybe he's not playing this week, and you find the guy who's kind of in a pickle where he needs points, he needs a running back. Devontae Smith isn't playing this week. You can kind of leverage. Boom, get that done. Ridley, that's crazy, but I guess people are low on Ridley now. Metcalf, 100% I would do that. Michael Pittman, I would do that as well. George Pickens is where it gets close. This is where it gets really close here. I think I would lean hold here, unless if you really needed a wide receiver. You could do Jerome Ford for Zay Flowers. That's a great one. Jerome Ford for Christian Kirk. That's also a great one. So again, like there's a lot of really nice pieces to be had for Jerome Ford if he's not a focal point of your team. Now, moving on from that, our only wide receiver on the sell list today is going to be Terry McLaurin, F1, Scary Terry, whatever you want to call him. It's just tough. I just don't trust this Washington offense. And I think coming off a game where he had 11 targets and he scored a decent amount of points, I think now would be the time to sell high. There's also something with Terry McLaurin where he's just a name, right? Like everyone knows who Terry McLaurin is. I know everyone that actually, I don't know, I guess like the ball knowers out there. No, Terry McLaurin's a good wide receiver. We're going to vacuum Terry McLaurin. If we're just doing a fantasy draft in the NFL and we're building a team, Terry McLaurin, top 20 wide receiver in that draft at worst. Now, the issue is that he's attached to Sam Howell, and you have Eric Bieniemy calling plays and distributing things certain ways. Now, it has been better recently that Eric Bieniemy has actually been feeding McLaurin and not making it such a thinned-out wide receiver rotation, but we don't know how long that lasts, right? It's kind of been a week-to-week thing with McLaurin, and even with the 11-target game this past week and these past couple of weeks where he's been a little bit better on the entire season, the usage has still been pretty shaky, where if we look at expected points per game on PFF, expected points per game, we talk about it a ton. We have targets, red zone targets, ADOT, all of that. Just based on your usage, your volume, how many points should you be putting up? He should be the wide receiver 42 right now. He's the wide receiver 40 in points per game. That's tough. That's not a difference maker at all. That's like replaceable production you can get from like Kendrick Bourne. So if you can sell high in the name value of Terry McLaurin, I would. Like we're in a range here of Elijah Moore, Josh Downs, and you have DJ Moore. We've talked about DJ Moore as a sell in the past, but DJ Moore's at least balling out of his freaking mind, right? 8.6, that plus minus column, that's how much are you over underperforming. DJ Moore is somehow playing out of his damn mind, overperforming expectations by 8.6 points per game. Terry McLaurin is not. And I don't think that he has the ceiling to get, where he's outperforming his volume by 5-6 points per game to give you meaningful production. So if you can sell on the name value, I think I would. Where if we kind of see what he's been selling for on Fantasy Calc, I mean, if I could sell him for Gibbs, I would. If I could sell him for Metcalf straight up, I don't know how that's out there, but I would. If I could sell him for T. Higgins even straight up, I would. If I could do, Terry McLaurin in a piece to go get Devontae Adams, this could be Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Jerome Ford, whatever. Go get Devontae Adams, 100%. Go do that. I think like Terry McLaurin for DK Metcalf, yes. Terry McLaurin for Christian Kirk, yes. Terry McLaurin in a Dallas Goedert's interesting, but Terry McLaurin in a piece for Aaron Jones, I think I would. Terry McLaurin from Jacoby Myers straight up, I think I would there as well. So just some things to think about with Terry McLaurin, where again, he's like in the wide receiver 40s, and because of his name and a good week with 11 targets, you can get out of there scot-free. Now our next trade target, the rest of these are all going to be running backs here. We have Zack Moss. Zack Moss. I know that this one's like pretty straightforward and pretty obvious, but again, people are down bad, man. Zack Moss right now is one of 3 running backs with 20-plus points per game on the entire year, which is crazy to say, but he's going to continue losing touches to JT. He's not going to be started moving forward. He's a strictly short-term asset. So if he's on your bench and he's not in your lineup this week, he has to go. You have to scoop up. You have to coop whatever value you can for Zack Moss. Again, someone might be hurting bad with Kyron Williams or David Montgomery, or they have Mixon on bye, or Henry on bye, or Breece Hall on bye, and they really need a win this week. Go approach him with Zack Moss, man. Zack Moss is somebody where it seems like, we're looking at these trades on Fantasy Calc. We'll look at them in a second, but he's trading, like, you'd be shocked, man. And on top of that, like, you can see the usage this week. He goes from 80% of the snaps to 49%. Now, he still scored points, right? He went 34 points to 18 points. People maybe think that he can give you 15-plus points for another few weeks here, and maybe he can, but I think you should be selling high when possible here, especially when he's going up against the Browns this week. The Browns are like a historically good defense, and the Saints. 2 defenses right now, these next 2 weeks, that are allowing the bottom 7 most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They are very tough against the run game, and on top of that, you're going to have Zack Moss's touches drained and given to Jonathan Taylor. So I think right now is the time to back out, because after this 2-week schedule, it lightens back up against Carolina, and I think that's when we see the official passing of the baton to Jonathan Taylor. So if I could sell, I 100% would. Like, you guys would be shocked at what you can kind of get for Zack Moss here. There is 100% a market for Zack Moss right now. People are just really down bad, dude. If I could do Zack Moss and Deontay Johnson for Jahmyr Gibbs, yes, all day long. If I could do, this is kind of interesting. If I could do Zack Moss for Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, I don't think I'd ever want to do that, but sure. Gibbs straight up, sure. Zack Moss for Kyle Pitts straight up. If I needed a tight end, I would think about it. I would think about that one. Zack Moss in a Rashid Shaheed or Kendrick Bourne for Jacoby Myers all day long. Zach Moss for Devontae Smith again. If somebody spooked off of Devontae Smith because of the injury and like a bad week, he didn't make it on the bye video from last night, but Devontae Smith low-key a little buy low here where he's going to like maybe miss this week. He had a down week versus the Jets. We know this offense is going to be fine. Devontae Smith, in my eyes, we look up in 3-4 weeks. I think that he's going to be fine. Christian Kirk, again, is a buy here. Anything else stick out? Zach Moss for Curtis Samuel. I think I'd probably hold on to Zach Moss there, but Zach Moss for Jordan Addison, sure. Zach Moss for Garrett Wilson, sure. Zach Moss for Kobe Myers, sure. Zach Moss for Adam Thielen, sure. Like all of those moves, I would be looking to do. Now, moving on from that, we have yet another running back, James Cook. Now, maybe there's some optimism, right? Because like Damian Harris went down, and maybe like somebody out there thinks like James Cook is going to be he's going to now be the guy. There's also like a weird camp of James Cook guys. There's a weird camp of guys who really like James Cook. I just don't see it. It's just been pretty brutal. The Bills have been tied now to Leonard Fournette and maybe signing a new running back to get into the mix. It's clear that they don't really trust James Cook. They also have Latavius Murray, who's been just eating into the work that James Cook has every single week here, where you can see Week 6, Damian Harris goes down, and instead of James Cook seeing 60% plus of the snaps, he doesn't. And this was in a game script where the Bills weren't hanging on to a lead versus the Giants. They were sort of struggling and clinging and trying to get back in it. And that was Latavius Murray in those long down and distance situations where a passing down back like James Cook should be out there. He was not. Latavius Murray was out there for 88% of the long down and distance snaps, whereas James Cook was out there for 13%. And then on top of the inside the 5 stuff, 0%. Latavius Murray had 100%. So Latavius, you mean to tell me Latavius Murray is taking the long down and distance stuff and the goal line work, and he's running almost as many routes as James Cook, right? Where he had a 41% of the routes, James Cook had 47%. That is absolutely brutal. You do not want James Cook to be the between the tackles guy because he's not going to be like the grinders of the world. At least they're goal line backs, right? James Cook is not getting anything on the goal line. So if you're just strictly getting between the 20 rushes for James Cook, that is very scary. That is very scary. He's at a 10%, he's at a 5% target share over the last 3 weeks, James Cook, right? Like he's not a goal line guy, and he is now no longer the receiving back for the Bills. So it's just brutal all over the place. He's a dead zone back at this point where he's the RB 25 in expected points per game. He's the RB 24 in points per game. He's not a difference maker. I would love to take James Cook in a piece and tier up to Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Bijan Robinson, DeAndre Swift, Jahmyr Gibbs, anything. Maybe you could do James Cook straight up for Jahmyr Gibbs. But you get what I'm saying? Like add a plus, get an upgrade to a new running back. I think is probably the way to go with James Cook. Now, if we look at fantasy calc here, and we kind of get all this junk out of the way, you can see, his value isn't 0, and that's why I think that it's time to sort of see what you can do here, where James Cook in a small piece for Ramondre, I actually don't hate that at all, but I wouldn't be crazy about it. James Cook for Christian Watson, I think I would. James Cook for Joe Mixon, if somebody has Joe Mixon on buying, is really down bad. I love that. Again, James Cook for Christian Watson. James Cook for Mike Evans, yes, all day. Again, James Cook in a piece. I don't even really think that Nico Collins is necessarily a sell, but again, James Cook in a piece for Tony Pollard, yes, all day. Any of those top running backs, Bijan, Pollard, Eckler, if anybody's sort of down on any of those top guys, not named McCaffrey, even if it's McCaffrey, man, maybe you can you do James Cook? Can you do James Cook and like A.J. Brown for McCaffrey? Something like that. I think I would be into that. On top of that, you can do plus for, James Cook and a plus for Bijan, James Cook and a plus like James Cook in London for Jacobs, James Cook and a plus for Bijan Robinson. I love all of these type of moves when it comes to James Cook. Now, our last sell here is going to be a repeat sell. Our fifth and final, we have Derrick Henry. He's been on this list like I think 3 weeks straight, man. He's still trading at his name value. He had a good week this week where he actually looked good. But man, we're still talking about Tyjae Spears over 50% of the snaps. Derrick Henry, RB24 in volume, expected points per game, RB18 in points per game. Like, it's just tough. He's really just like a back-end RB2, mid-range RB2. And the thing is that he's selling at the name value of Derrick Henry, and he's selling at like a fringe RB1 price. Like, he's even valued on Fantasy Calc as like an RB1 here. And if I could sell out, cash out, I just think you absolutely have to. If you can use Derrick Henry in any capacity, now I wouldn't do Cooper Kupp, but if you can use Derrick Henry in any capacity and get to Christian McCaffrey, yes, all day long. Now, instead of Cooper Kupp, maybe more like a I'm trying to think of like what would actually like sort of make sense here. I think Derrick Henry and Ayuk, I would. Derrick Henry and Devontae Smith, I would. Derrick Henry and Debo, I would. Derrick Henry and DK Metcalf. I don't know if any of these are going to work. I think where you start to get super steep is like Derrick Henry and like the CeeDee Lambs of the world and the AJ Browns of the world. But if you can kind of split the difference and get to McCaffrey, I think you have to. You also have Derrick Henry for Josh Jacobs straight up. I would do that. Derrick Henry and like a ancillary piece for Devontae Adams. Yes. Derrick Henry for Jonathan Taylor straight up. Yes. Derrick Henry and a piece like Devontae Smith for Jamar Chase. Yes. Derrick Henry straight up for Raheem Mostert. Yeah. So like you can still, I mean, that is just insane. Like we're at a point now where Raheem Mostert is the only other running back not named Zack Moss or Christian McCaffrey with over 20 plus points per game. And it's not really going to slow down. So I would do Derrick Henry for Raheem Mostert straight up. As crazy as that sounds, I would. I mean, it sounds crazy before the season, but I think now, I don't think that it's all that crazy. Now, that's going to do it for us today. As always, you can find my rest of season rankings if you kind of want to reference them while you're wheeling and dealing to kind of see what's going on here. Does Ron prefer, like, okay, he has Derrick Henry here, but where does he prefer Derrick Henry versus Pacheco and Joe Mixon and all these other guys? You can find that on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I'll have that in the description, the comment section down below. On there, you get my rest of season rankings every week. You get my weekly waiver wire article every week where I go through all my waiver wire ads, all the fab I'm bidding on them to the exact cent, to the exact percent of my budget, and my weekly rankings every week where I just sort of rank flex, running backs, wide receivers. You guys are ready to go with your lineup set up and good to go for Sundays. But if you can't support there, leave a like, subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, oh.